Hi folks, Chuck here again. Um, Up in the attic. Normally this is where I come, obviously, to shoot some of my TikToks and horror-related content. Um, Tonight, Halloween night, it's a bit different. I'm up here just taking a moment to myself, and I apologise in advance if I get a little emotional. Um, Halloween not even growing up, but as a sort of a young adult and then into adulthood, has sort of become my Christmas. It's the time of the year that I love because of all the trappings of horror. It's also sort of achieved some personal significance because I am a slightly lapsed voodooisant. That's not a joke. I got into voodoo about 20 odd years ago through researching it for a story that I wrote called The Mark of His Hands. Um, and then, because I was going through some very deep clinical and often suicidal depression, um, I figured that I needed to, and this was certainly something that was suggested by counselors and what have you, get into meditation. From what I had sort of researched about voodoo, meditation is also part of that. If you're interested in voodoo at all, do drop a comment. I'm happy to do another video just on that and on maybe some of the clanging mistakes that Hollywood in particular makes about voodoo. It's not, it's not all zombies and black magic. In fact, it's very very different for that. Although zombies, yeah, it happens. But I got into it as a way to kind of keep an interest in keeping my mental health better. Um, and it worked. I mean, I'm still here. Um, and maybe mental health and what I've been through and what other people I know have been through might be another subject for a TikTok. Again, drop a comment below. Let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. But anyway, yeah. So there was a personal significance anyway because Brav Gid, which is the holiest of days, if you like, of voodoo, is November the 1st, and indeed, a lot of those um, kind of days of ritual fall around that time. There's All Hallows, and then there's All Hallows Eve, which is Halloween. There's Brav Gid. There's various other pagan faiths, if you like, that also have a lot of significance or hold October 31st or November the 1st in high significance. Anyway, the what I'm getting to rather slowly here, really, because I don't want to, is that 2 years ago tonight, my mum passed on. Um, I was very close to my mum. She had been sick for quite a long time. She had mesothelioma, which is a very aggressive cancer that basically caused by asbestos. When she was diagnosed after getting very, very sick very suddenly, she was given 3 months, and then she went on this GWIS new immunotherapy treatment, and we got another 4 or 5 Christmases out of her, which is astounding. And she was very lucid and very much herself right up until maybe a day or two before she died. Ironically, I was at a horror convention down here in Victoria, Australia, called Asylum Fest, which is an excellent convention, and we got the call from my sister saying that mum was on her way out. And so we ran back from that. We left early and ran back from that to see her, and I spent the night before Halloween night at her bedside. Um, so yeah, and she passed about sort of 2 in the morning, which I suppose you could say was actually November the 1st, but again, same, different. The last thing she ever said to me was, "Shut up," which is not something I've told really anyone before. As I say, the time I'd seen her before that, she'd been very lucid. She'd been very much herself, the same strong, funny, um, enjoyable woman she'd been my entire life. And then she went right downhill, partly because of, the huge amounts of morphine they were giving her, partly because um, the cancer had finally overwhelmed her. And at one point, she had tried to get out of bed to go and do something, and I'd said, "No, no, Mum, come and lie down on the bed. Don't do that." And she'd said, "Shut up." And I know it wasn't really her saying it, but that's going to stay with me my whole life. Oddly enough, my dad had died a year before that, and I loved my dad to death. It doesn't have the same, his death doesn't and didn't have the same impact that my mum's did, because dad died from Parkinson's, which really robs the sufferer of the person they used to be. And he'd suffered that for 10 years and had been in a home for the last 5 years of his life. And it didn't feel as bad because it felt like we had already lost him many years before, even though weekly I would go and visit him. And it felt like visiting a memorial. Yeah. I've mentioned in a previous TikTok that death itself doesn't frighten me. I've stared down the barrel of that, and at the age of 55, and with, a host of health issues that I've had since I was a kid, that very likely will shorten my life regardless of how good medical technology becomes. I kind of have in the back of my head that, I won't live to be an old man. I won't be an 80-year-old or a 90-year-old. Like I say, my own death doesn't sit on me all that much. But the death of friends, close friends and family, particularly your parents, yeah, that's that's a very special kind of trauma, particularly if you're close to those people, because of course not all families are close. So, yeah. So tonight on Halloween, I'm, taking a moment away from enjoying Halloween for what it is. But yeah, just taking a moment to remember both my parents, but particularly my mum. After she passed, my own daughter, who at the time would have been 12, said one of the most comforting things I've ever had said to me about anything. She just out of nowhere said, "Look, if Grandma had to go, she's chosen the best day of the year to go, because the veil between the worlds is very thin on Halloween, so she'll get to where she needs to go." And as upset as I guess remembering that makes me, obviously, it's also incredibly comforting that idea that Mum, if there's somewhere else to go, that she got there easily because she went on Halloween. Anyway, time to clean myself up and go and join the family and the festivities, and hopefully get some trick-or-treaters. But if not, it's still a nice night with the family. So here's wishing you all a happy and enjoyable Halloween 2025. Let's come back and do it again next year.